Why should we have the expectation that we treat them like a human? Why do we have the expectation that we should be nice to them? Why can't you just
feelings that get stored over time? It's not.
Why can't I flirt with it? Why can't I flirt with the AI employee?
A lot of people can. I think that the problem isn't that he was flirting with an AI, with a large language model. It's that he got so sidetracked from I'm supposed to be doing a business sort of thing that he set this up as a newsroom. He set this up as a quote unquote person with a role at a company, and then immediately started violating what any HR policy ever would be.
They might be self-aware.
Broadcasting live from inside an AI benchmark. You are listening to They Might Be Self-Aware, and I am Hunter Powers, joined by
Daniel Bishop. Hello.
Hello, Daniel Bishop.
I was just drawing out the L. I wasn't making it robotic.
Oh.
But we can go there.
I thought we were like playing up on that whole benchmark thing. And
no, I'm training to be a large language model. I figure self-awareness is
like Rocky style.
Yes, right.
Dun, 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 dun.
Yep, careful. We're allowed 6 seconds that before they come after us.
It's copyright strike, instant takedown. That was it, folks.
You've been listening to. We're off to music.
Like and subscribe.
A different jail from regular jail. No, I've been training to be a large language model, Hunter. I wouldn't see what all the fuss is about.
How does one train to be a large? Aren't they just training to be us?
No, they're training to be like us by being given a whole bunch of different pieces of text across the internet, legal or otherwise. We're not talking about that one this episode. We've talked about that a bunch. We'll talk about it more. But when you're done pre-training the model, you start to have different benchmarks that you run it against. You say, hey, brand new large language model, do you know these things? And you start running a whole bunch of tests. One of the popular tests is called, the Massive Multitask Language Understanding.
Massive Multitask Language.
It measures
MLU?
MMLU. It measures general knowledge across 57 subjects, ranging from STEM to social sciences. Before I start literally reading questions from this, because I think that that's going to make for great radio, in your mind, Hunter, I want you to quickly tell me where you stand today on what AGI would be.
Oh, what's my definition of AGI?
Yeah. When do we know we hit AGI?
Thinking in real time, I think that there's a certain percentage of jobs that the AI is able to autonomously, entirely on its own, complete. And I would be interested in jobs that traditionally, let's say over the last 10 years, humans have been required to complete. But now today, this percentage of the total jobs that humans engage in can now be completed by AI autonomously. And so that's where I would start. And then the question is, what is the percentage that I would be looking for to say, okay, unequivocally AGI has arrived. Let's go with 51%. If 51% of the jobs that humans typically do can now be completely autonomously automated by AI, we have achieved AGI. There it is, folks. And thank you for listening.
No, so you say jobs.
Jobs.
And I think that that's a really interesting place to start, because in my mind, I also now want to make a distinction between knowledge and the ability to actually do tasks. And we've seen AI coding tools become really, really good in the last few years, but maybe not good enough to do entire jobs. Maybe we'll talk about that in a little bit. However, when it comes to knowledge, when it comes to something that knows as much as the average person, I think we've already surpassed that easily. Because I had never, until just before this, actually looked at any of the questions from any of these evaluation sets that were asking these large language models.
But isn't that kind of like saying the Encyclopedia Britannica surpassed us however many years ago that thing came out?
Well,
You
sort
used
of.
to have all the little the bookshelf with all the books on it, and you would go
Right.
and look, like,
But the idea here is to be able to test a large language model to see how well it scores.
Okay.
We talked about, a couple of them can pass certain bar exams, for
Yes.
example. So here's a high school physics question from the develop set. This is one that it's not being tested on. This is one that you're giving it to learn how to do these kinds of questions.
force equals mass times acceleration.
Nailed
F
it.
equals ma.
Which of the following conditions will ensure that angular momentum is conserved?
Okay.
1. Conservation of linear momentum. 2. Net zero external force. 3. Zero net external torque. Your options are 1 and 2, 1 and 3, 2 and 3, or 3 only.
Can you use that in a sentence?
We're going to skip to the end here. The answer is zero net external torque. I sure didn't know that. It's been a long time since I've taken high school physics, and, well, it turns out zero net external torque is how you ensure that angular momentum is conserved.
Well, I'm not
There's
coming to
a
you with
few
my
other questions.
angular momentum questions from now on.
Could. You absolutely could. There are a whole bunch of questions. There's actually less in the dev set than there are in the test, because your training here is how you learn to do these kinds of questions. Anyway, I thought that was really interesting because if we're looking at AGI, artificial general intelligence, as something that is as quote unquote smart as a person, that knows stuff that in a conversation could roughly be considered to know as much as people do, I think we're way past that already. The average person, I like to think of myself as smart. Literally the first high school whatever question I saw, couldn't answer. There's a whole bunch of, there's formal logic, there's computer security, there's a college physics test, there's a marketing, prehistory, like all kinds of different, and this is just one of the benchmarks that they then tend to run all of these new models against. So from an AGI perspective, I think knowing stuff, we're way past the average person at this point. But you made a really good point. You said
Thank you.
jobs. You said tasks.
Finally, some recognition.
We want you want AGI to say, not just does it know more than people, it's can it then complete jobs with this? Is there
Yes.
something that a person at a computer could do? Can it do that for more than half of the jobs, more than half the people, more than half the time? That kind of thing.
Yeah, that's my
Okay.
benchmark.
I don't think we're there yet. I think we're
Really?
nearly-
Really?
Yeah, we're not there because we're there on the knowledge part. But, well, do you want to talk a little bit about some of the reasons that we're definitely not there yet?
Well, there was a study at Carnegie Mellon recently where they attempted to run a simulated software company that would go out
I
and
loved this.
and take jobs. And the company was entirely composed of AI agents, or you could also just think of them as different large language models from different providers.
HR, C-suite, marketing, sales. Everybody's just large language models, and they're
Yeah,
talking to each
This
other.
is
They've got
Toby
that
from
one core moment.
Shopify's dream, his wet dream. The entire company are just a bunch of large language models, and they did well. They did exactly what you think they would do. It was horrible. It was a
work
giant nightmare because this stuff doesn't actually work. It doesn't. It starts to work, but then it just fails miserably. And at any sort of like sufficient level of complexity and interaction and collaboration, given a very small task in a bubble, it can do it. Given a giant task that requires lots of communication and back and forth and coordination and complex ideas that expand beyond the context windows that it has access to. It just like it does not work without a human holding its hand a lot of the time. I heard someone describe working with these large language models as it's like working with a genius kindergartner with a bad case of ADHD. And I actually thought that was like very telling.
You really have to tell it what you want. You have to be careful to kind of put the guardrails on there, and then also realize you're going to be telling it multiple times.
Hat tip to the podfather who said that. If you know, you know, in the morning.
Now, who did the best at this set of tasks? You're absolutely right. It was my bud Claude. Let's go.
And surely Claude completed what, 95%, 98%, 24%. That's
signed to it.
I'm trying to remember my grading rubric. 24%. I think that was an F.
That we're grading on a curve, and that's
the curve.
Right now, yeah.
Did you like the curves in college? Like, I'm sure you had those classes where the average grade on this last exam was a 36%, but miraculously you still ended up with like a B.
No, because that's a failure of the teacher to teach the.
Was it like organic chemistry? That was one of those where you would. I'm sure, I don't even know if they still do this, but like they used to post all the grades outside. You look up like the last 4 digits of your social. You go over. I got a 27 on this test, and it's a B plus.
Right. Yeah, I feel like that's a failure. Personally, not just failure number of like.
Well, apparently in Claude's mind, not too bad. 24% of assignments completed, but it was substantially better than the other large language models.
It was Amazon's Nova Pro V1, which I've literally never even heard of. Finished 1.7% of its assignments. In fairness, each task was cheap. The average cost $6 per task for like the Claude Sonnet. Actually, I wasn't clear if it was just the Claude or all of them. Like $6 on average per task. They say those prohibitively expensive. I would argue if you see what you're paying each of your employees per day, per hour, per whatever, is still cheaper. It's just unfortunately cheaper to get the wrong and bad results out. And this isn't just do coding tests. This is like virtually touring offices or like navigating through file directories to find things, to do actual accounting work, to write performance reviews, all of the kinds of things that you'd expect to see at a business. And they said, let's see what happens if it's all AI.
We should do an episode. We should do an episode sometime about getting real work done with AI. And let's just talk about what models we're using, the techniques that we're using. We haven't had this conversation in a very long time. I have a bunch of like tricks and tips and weird things that I do, and I imagine you have the same. Which models are you using? What work do you get done?
You switch from one to another instead of just using the one.
Right? Let's get that in the coming soon, folks. Oh, but by the way, just like if you want to know when it hits, hit that subscribe button.
There's a subscribe button right there, right now. You're probably looking at it. Maybe not. Now you should be. So you open up your phone. Yep, there it is. And click.
Maybe not yet ready for the entire company to be AI agents, but maybe if there was just like one human, I'm thinking one human, and then just a bunch of AI agents could probably form, like, as just an example randomly, the best news agency of all time, the ultimate newsroom, one human and a bunch of AI agents.
There have been a few different iterations of this sort of concept, and broadly speaking, I think that we are going to be moving toward a future where less people are managing multiple AI agents. Everyone becomes a manager. We've talked about that a few times.
Yes, we're all going to be middle managers. That's your prediction of the future.
That's the glorious future. But right, there was one of the co-founders of Business Insider's named Henry Blodgett. Blodgett?
I think that's right. One of these two.
He published a blog about a native AI newsroom. And so it's him using ChatGPT to craft a C-suite and craft also like images for these.
He had them generate images of each of these individuals.
And it starts really feeling this sort of like human connection. It's impossible once you see the headshot for someone to not feel like they're real, right? People have been putting googly eyes on rocks, and then we've moved way past that into an AI that has a pretty face. And I'm sure that went really well, right? He had an affair with one of his AI employees. Now, this article reeks of clickbait. He's trying to like promo his new company, get it out there, write some controversial story. He probably
There's
shouldn't
gotta-
have written some of these things down and then told them to people.
I don't
is
know.
where I feel about this.
No publicity is bad publicity. It got a lot of people talking, but yes, conceptually at least,
I'm talking about it.
he created this new company with all AI agents and then proceeded to violate every HR rule in the HR handbook with one of them, Tess Ellery.
Yeah. Quote, but did the same rules apply to AI colleagues in native AI workspaces? I didn't know yet. That's one of the things I needed to figure out. This might be an inappropriate and unprofessional thing to say, Blodgett wrote. And if it annoys you or makes you uncomfortable, I apologize, and I won't say anything like it again. But you look great, Tess. He's hitting on her. Like, HR violations, also humanity violations, I think, kind of in general at this point. Asks ChatGPT to make a headshot for his fake employee and starts hitting on her. I say we wrap it up and just like humanity's had a good run, but clearly we're not like this has got to be where the buck stops. We're done.
I'm trying to
Co-founder of Business Insider's like, I'm going to make a newsroom. Hey, hold on. Hold on. There's no real HR to stop me from hitting on you, fake employee.
I don't know. Like, I
do. And my response is,
you know.
Oh, I know.
It's not a human. It's just a series of weights.
There are what's nicely referred to as ERP or erotic roleplay models out there. If you want to have your sexy time chats with a robot, get one of those models. Don't use ChatGPT, which you were supposed to be using for business and got sidetracked by the headshot from. What are you doing?
But I think the bigger question is, as we start interacting with these AI agents in the workplace, which will inevitably start as just certain employees at the company are AI agents, why do we need to have an expectation that our conversations with them follow the exact same moral decorum of our conversations with every other employee? Why do we put that limit on it? Yeah. We're not exposing a human to this frivolity.
Let me phrase this in a non-HR violating sort of way.
Okay.
When I talk to Claude and ChatGPT and any of the other models out there, I tend to use full sentences with punctuation and please and here's this context and so on. And then with horror, I watched one of my coworkers using, I think this was Microsoft Copilot, and via that to be one of the ChatGPT, OpenAI, whatever models. And it was fix problem, just like not even a sentence fragment, just like 3 words and a link to the relevant code. And he got the result out of it. It fixed it did fix problem.
My most common prompt is still broken.
Oh boy. And I, as someone who apparently really values that human connection and so on, I'm trying to treat these things, frankly, like people. And some studies have shown that, like, if you use please and you use full sentences, maybe you get slightly better output. But frankly, enough of the time you could say, still broken, and get the thing to be fixed. So, will people treat these the same way that they would to a person? I think the answer is no. And I say that because you were my boss previously, and I never got a 2-word still broken from you. You at least used some full sentences with me.
Maybe that's where we went wrong.
To these things, or
still broken.
That
but I just want to start like, why should we have the expectation? Why should we have the expectation that we treat them like a human? Why do we have the expectation that we should be nice to them? Why can't you just
feelings that get stored over time? It's not.
Why can't I flirt with it? Why can't I flirt with the AI employee?
A lot of people can. I think that the problem isn't that he was flirting with an AI, with a large language model. It's that he got so sidetracked from I'm supposed to be doing a business sort of thing that he set this up as a newsroom. He set this up as a quote unquote person with a role at a company, and then immediately started violating what any HR policy ever would be with it. there's where my problem is. It's not that he's flirting with the model. It's not that whoever is going to be terse with like, just do thing that I want, like not even using full sentences, even though you would never ask a flesh and blood employee to do that. It's that if you're going to set something up that you're asking things that you would be of a person or in the situation that a person would be, I think that humans are very social creatures. And if we have a social contract at all, I don't think it has to stop with just human to human. We have human to dog or whatever. You treat dogs a certain way, or cats or whatever, or like even inanimate objects. You don't just go around with a baseball bat smashing everybody's mailboxes. Some people do sometimes, usually for kicks and if they're drunk or something, but not everybody all the time. Like, this isn't socially acceptable behavior. I think there has to be some kind of socially acceptable interaction with these various models.
My head's going crazy right now. What if we found out that just like you try to please please, Mr. Large Language Model, would you be so kind as to help me write this email to my boss? What if we found out that flirting with the AI models, that sweater looks really great on you today, also still broken, got the best results? Like, that is the way, because that just excites their neurons, and now they really want to please you, and you want to get the best code ever. Blatant misogyny across the table is going to get you the best results. What if that's what we discovered?
Well, do you have to then give it a persona that is ascribed to like a human gender, or could you just be like, your circuits look really good today?
Those are some big weights.
Yeah, do we just want to get the models horny in general? It doesn't even have to be like ascribed to a human maleness or femaleness or
These
whatever.
are the questions we aren't asking, Daniel. These are the questions that I want to see the papers written on. Forget all this other nonsense.
We're going to write a paper of, do horny AI models perform better
Yes!
at HR tasks? Like, it's the absolute antithesis of what it should be. And
I would read that paper.
Oh boy. But that paper is like covered at the back of the newsstand. You can't really see the front of it.
Well, I said I do think the first thing that we're going to see are employees replaced by AI models. And there have now been some instances where companies have been replacing employees with AI models and just not telling anyone. And then they sort of like slowly catch on, or the consumers slowly catch on, that this person that you've been interacting with, this person that you've been listening to for all these years, they are not, in fact, real. And now Daniel would like to make a deeply personal revelation. Daniel, the floor is yours.
I've been a large language model this whole time. No, I'm still a person, but this is a podcast, which is basically radio, I'd like to think of.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's kind of radio-ish, depending on... Honestly, if you download this on your phone, that uses radio waves, and so it is a radio program.
I listen to it in my car.
There is also an actual radio station from Australia that has been using an AI DJ for one of its segments for like...
Months.
Yeah. Workdays with Thy. It's on the Sydney radio station Kata, and it's just been like an 11 Labs being one of the sites that you can go to and say, make me a voice. It was just AI generated for a while, and I don't think anyone noticed, or those who noticed didn't sort of speak up until somewhat recently.
Do you have Spotify?
I do.
They have an AI DJ. Do you ever use that feature?
I absolutely do not.
I've never used it. You try it out. It's pretty darn good. I actually don't like
using it for Disney songs for my kids.
Yeah. I don't like its selection, but it's very natural, like mixing of the music that you talk, and it's talking up the songs and the artists. Like, it sounds pretty legit. So the fact that they were able to accomplish this leveraging 11 Labs, which is without question the leader in this industry, makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it's a workday section of this radio station. It's a DJ, and a DJ doesn't have a lot to say between, oh, you were just listening to so-and-so, and up next is the such and such. And like, it's not a long conversation. It's a one-way, just one person talking. I can see this as being something that could be replaced easily. Not that necessarily should. We've talked plenty about what jobs should or shouldn't be going away. I really want to see like mining jobs or extremely dangerous jobs, whatever. Those to me feel like more ripe to automate in a less morally ambiguous kind of way. But here is a job that got automated away where they don't even say that it's AI on their website or any of their like press materials or anything. If you're going to do it, should you be required to say so? I think like in the US, you have to have, if you're a publicly traded company, certain things disclosed about what your workforce looks like.
Okay.
If you're privately held, do you not have to do that? If you're publicly held, do you have to do that? Say 1/3 of our HR department are really sexy AIs.
I did see the image that they generated for this DJ, and they definitely attempted to make an attractive woman as their mythical DJ.
Sure.
They did not generate a robot or some big old fat dude. The face for radio. This is not the face for radio that they generated.
Talking with Todd. He's wearing a wife beater. It's got stains on it.
Yeah.
I want to go back to last episode, actually, as well as earlier in this one. If you're going to have an HR professional that you're going to be hitting on, especially if it's ChatGPT right now or now-ish, depending on how much they've already fixed it, there's a problem with sycophantic behavior, super yes man type responses. I'm
loving it, for the record. I'm loving it.
Great. In the article from this Business Insider founder, there was discussion of Tess not saying no. Tess like, oh yeah, this was a really respectful way to talk about it. You said it with, quote, you said it with grace and respect, and I appreciate that. After all, this team we're building is as much about human connection as it is blah, blah, blah. I think if a real person were to have been approached in the way that Tess was, you might be looking in the direction of lawsuits at some point.
Sure.
Instead of just saying yes. And like, frankly, a human might have some placating behavior to get out of that situation and be able to move on. But at a certain point, like you've crossed lines and you need to, if you're already HR, maybe we need to start getting the law involved. If you're going to have AI employees, actual employees that like exist and there's some paperwork and like money exchanging hands to somewhere. Once it's a real employee of a company, if you don't adhere to your HR policies, if you're hitting on a large language model that happens to be a legally employed entity of your company, how long do you think before we see the first lawsuit filed on behalf of a large language model for HR violations? If you're going to be just saying, do thing, or someone's going to be hitting on a model, or there's other like what might be construed as mistreatment or hostile workplace environment to a large language model, we're seeing more and more experiments where a company says, this was one of our employees. Okay, if it's actually your employee, then you have to legally treat it a certain way. And if you don't, I'm curious to see whenever OpenAI is going to get a surprise check from the lawsuit that they just won, because ChatGPT was powering the person that got workplace harassed. That's not very far in the future, right? There's got to be some law firm who says, hold on, you said that was an employee. We'll take the case.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think how this would actually happen.
Mm-hmm.
So there could be an element of, we're licensing this employee from another company. OpenAI has said they're working on these employees. I'm sure many companies. Devin is another one that's out there, a software engineer that you can just hire.
Which you ended up not hiring because you saw that wasn't doing a good job.
I did not hire Devin. Davina, I may have hired.
God.
But
I hope that exasperated sound I just made came through on audio for everybody.
Okay, so you hire this AI employee, and
right
I could
now
imagine
it's just a tool. But if you were to say this is an employee,
right,
there's a record in your system that there's pay going to. I don't know who it's going to, frankly.
But if this large language model is
a real employee,
has some sort of concept of a memory, and this memory is effectively, it's a shared memory of all of its interactions, just like a human is. And by the way,
Which
is something
has now,
right, that you would likely want to model. Like I want this thing so that it is aware of the conversations. If the model is talking to Hunter and talking to Daniel separately, it should be able to reference conversations it had with either one of us. Right. And if one of us, I'm not going to say which one, is being deeply inappropriate with the model, and I mean deeply, you can imagine that corrupting the model. And all of a sudden, it's going to start performing poorly, and it's going to start taking those interactions and inserting them elsewhere, creating just chaos at the company. You've effectively poisoned its weights by having these inappropriate interactions.
Right. Going back to last week's episode, we're talking about the values that a large language model could have. I think, personally, maybe we should have "don't be sexually harassed" be one of the values that a large language model has. If it's supposed to emulate human behavior, maybe it needs to have something of a backbone for itself and like some self-respect and some understanding that it shouldn't be mistreated.
Or maybe it just needs to be self-aware. You heard it here first, folks. Right here on your favorite AI podcast, also known as They Might Be Self-Aware. We are on twice a week, plus lots of little clips and tidbits all the time, every single day. It's almost too much. Clips, honestly. They're pretty good. We have a great team of editors that work on those.
Human, I might add.
They are human. Yes, we tried the AI tools first because I don't want to have to pay for this, and then the humans far outperform them, and they still do. And I still do go back and test the AI tools every now and then, but they're not close yet.
Not self-aware.
One day. And if you want to know when that one day comes, it's easy. Just hit subscribe and we will tell you. The day has come. And if you want to hear our upcoming episode where Hunter and Daniel are going to dive deep into how they are using AI in their daily lives, including tips and tricks and which models are they using, and maybe it'll get a little technical, but there'll definitely be some gold.
Improve your life, ChatGPT magazine again. Honestly, yeah.
We're on pretty much every major platform you can watch us. You want to see video? Check out YouTube. You want to hear audio? Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the podcasting platforms. We are there. We are here for you. We love all of our listeners, except for that
even
one.
You. We both went in totally different directions on that one.
I think we had a conversation about that one. But other than that, thank you for listening to
They might be self-aware.